What's up, guys? Welcome to F Words with Gordo. I'm your gracious host, Gordo. Thanks for tuning in. It honestly means so much that you guys watch this as regularly as you do. If you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing, that makes a huge difference for who can access this. And today's episode's about budgeting. Some people hate talking about budgeting. Some people think you don't have to do it. I'm a hugely passionate budgeter, and I think we all need to figure out a system that works for us. And so that's what I'm going to talk about here. Budgeting can be the key to unlock a really fruitful life now and in the future. And hey, you deserve having the best life you can have. And budgeting is a huge avenue towards that. So that's what I talk about. I talk about how I budget and why it's important, how to do some categories, some decisions to make for yourself. And I hope it's helpful. I hope it's helpful and makes a big difference and maybe gets you started on a path you haven't started on, or just helps you on something you've been trying for a long time. And listen, I said this in the episode, but I just want to say it now too. If you haven't figured out how to get your budget, you try, just don't quit. Keep trying. You're going to find something that works. Just keep trying, and you get this. You got this, guys. Here's the episode. Yo, guys, what's up? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Gordo. This is the F Words. And today we're talking about more finance stuff. I was going to say gold, but it feels a little presumptuous to say anything that like you're talking about to call it gold. But today I'm talking about one of the three pillars when it comes to personal finance, and that is budgeting, which no one wants to do. No one likes doing it. Actually, that's not true. I'm sure there are people that like doing it, but it's not necessarily the most life-giving stuff, but it's hugely important. So previously I've talked about life insurance. Actually, like there's different types of insurance you should have as an individual and a person in a family, and then getting a will done. And then budgeting is like the third pillar of personal finance that's super, super important. So why is budgeting important? Budgeting is important because the more money, I feel like the more money you accrue, the more money you earn, the more you spend. You know, and there was like, I remember distinctly when I was younger, I think I was making like $8 an hour at a grocery store. And I saw this ad in the newspaper for a city maintenance worker that was making $21 an hour. And I was like, oh my gosh, if I had that job and made that money, I could do so many things, and I could give more to charity, and I could whatever. And it would be like unlimited. That'd be so much money. Anyway, fast forward like 2 years, and I was making more than that. I think I was making $29 an hour. And I tell you, I mean, first off, you get taxed more. You don't realize how much more you get taxed. Because I mean, I was making at 29 compared to 8, I was making like, over 3 times what I was making. Maybe it was 9, but even still, it's 3 times what I was making. And anyway, I did a pretty good job of saving and kind of not overspending myself for sure. But, you don't wind up with the fortune you think you're going to. And it's not as fulfilling as you think it's going to be to make like crazy extra money. And even now I have to watch myself, because sometimes I think if I just make this amount, we'll be set. We won't have to worry about this we won't have to worry about budgeting anymore. And it's like, it's not true. And you know what I found, as my wife and I got married and we start having a family and we start doing different jobs and businesses, you have to be more diligent on budgeting than less. And it's like the more money you make, the more money you spend, whether for whatever reason. Sometimes it's practical, like when you get a family, you need a bigger place, you spend more on rent. Sometimes you just think like, oh yeah, we could afford to do a trip to Kelowna, or we could afford to do this extra trip. and it just like goes away. And if you don't create a budget and diligently stick to it, then you spend years working and you're like, why don't we have any money saved up? Why aren't we investing anything? Where's everything going? And you have to spend time like managing it to know. So when it comes to budgeting, and also what I've realized too from working in I've worked in some really small organizations, some really big organizations, and when you start a family, you're really managing a small business at the end of the day. That's the comparison for sure, because when you get multiple incomes and you get all these avenues of expenses, you are basically functioning like a small business, and you have to allocate surplus to to prepare for future expenses that may or may not come up. Like there's all like yeah, you have different credit cards. Anyway, it's like a small business and you have to manage it like a small business. And you don't have to be like accounting, you don't need to sign up for QuickBooks, but you have to have a system in place that works. And just because a system that you've tried before hasn't worked doesn't mean you just quit and stop and you just do whatever. It means you just keep trying and finding new systems, trying new things, talking to people. Well, it's tricky talking to people because some people talk like they have things set out, or they have things like worked out. But then the more you talk to them, the more you find out. I find the more I talk to people, the more they like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. They like make it sound like they've got whatever topic you're asking them about all set and they're great at it. And then you ask them a specific question and they either give you a dumb answer and you realize they don't know what they're talking about, or they just kind of concede like, oh, actually, I don't really know about that. And sometimes they do, but I find more often than I realize, like I'll look at someone and think, this person has this topic figured out. Like it could be investments, it could be budgeting, it could be whatever. And then I'll ask a clarifying question and they'll give me an answer. And then I realize I know more about this than they do. Why am I asking about it right now? And that's not the point of this, to like figure out who you have this set up, who you have this figured out more than. But the point is to resource yourself. And sometimes the people around you can be resources. Sometimes they're the worst resources. So you have to be careful. Books, online videos, like there's tons of things. And when it comes to budgeting, there's so many different ways to do it. And I think the foundation that you have to set as your foundational level is you have to spend less than you make. That's the foundational principle. We have to spend less than we make. And then when you go up a layer and you're building on that foundation, then it becomes, we have to use the budget that makes the most sense for us, because the budget that works for one person or one couple might be the worst thing in the world for another one. It has to like totally make sense. And then the level above that is simpler is better than complicated. So those are like the three, as you're building the pyramid, it's not a pyramid scheme, but as you're like building it, that's your foundational level. That's the next. You have to spend less than you make. You have to find the type of budget that works for you, and simpler is better than complicated. And people speak really authoritatively about this and how these things should work, and whether you should use credit cards or debit cards, or whether you should use a cash budget. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's whatever works for you. Picking credit cards and building reward points is great, but if those credit cards allow you to spend more than you make, then it's awful. Because honestly, when it comes to reward points, you think like, oh man, we paid for a vacation or paid for whatever with these reward points. On average, reward points get you between 0.5% and 2% of what you spend. That's what you end up making. And they don't really make them so you can like churn more than that. If you want to churn more than that, I shouldn't say this in case you are awful with credit cards, but the best way to use reward points is you just sign up for a new credit card when there's an awesome welcome bonus. And when you get that and you burn through it, then you go to a different one. So and this is what I'll say too. Credit cards never make you rich. There's not a credit card in the world that's going to make you rich at all. Has nothing to do. Though it has like no upside in terms of making you rich and exponential downside in terms of keeping you from being rich, because if you mismanage it, then it can totally screw you for a long time. So this is the thing where it's like some people demonize credit cards, which is fair. But here's the perk about credit cards. The biggest perk, and people don't talk about this, the biggest perk is it's insured and it's not connected to your debit account. So the problem is if you use a debit card, I mean, and this might be relieved a bit with Visa debit cards, but if you use a debit card that's connected to your bank account, and someone scams it, you could be totally screwed. They give you access to whatever. Where you use a credit card, if you get scammed, you just tell a credit card and they're like, oh, thank you, Mr. McCallum. No problem. We'll cancel that and send you a new one in the next 5-10 business days. And there's no issue at all. But again, so you have a bit of protection with scams. You get, let's say, best case scenario, 2% of your spending you make back in rewards. You get 2% back, and you can get flexibility using it internationally. Now, again, those are somewhat alleviated because debit Visa alleviates some of those, but those are the biggest perks. What's the downside? The downside is you max it out because you're not being diligent. You can't pay it off. It goes to a collector. It ruins. Well, credit score is even debatable how important a credit score is anyway, but you still don't want that hanging over your head. So if a credit card prevents you from spending less than you make, then it's not worth it. It's honestly, everyone should just get a bank account and practice with a debit card, like spending less than you make. And if you are diligent with that, consider adding a low credit, a low, what's it called? Total credit, like the total amount they'll let you spend on the credit card. And consider getting reward points, whatever. But the most important thing is you have to be able to, for sure, not max it out. You have to pay it off every single week, every single month. You have to pay it off all the time. If you're carrying a balance, just forget it. Cancel it, cut it up, stick with a debit card. The reward points are not worth it. Because the upside of spending less than you make and doing that with a debit account and not having a credit card and the rest that comes with it and being able to invest, the upside, it's reverse. It's like, I think it's a log. If I'm doing this with my hands, if you're listening to this, then it really does not matter. But there's I think it's a logarithmic chart where it's kind of reversing exponential charts that meet in the middle. And that's basically what credit cards are on the downside, investments are on the upside. And your spending habits determine which way you go. And so you have to spend less than you make. You have to find a budgeting system that works for you. And you have to know where every single dollar goes. You have to know where every single dollar goes. And I don't care how old you are or what you're doing, you have to be investing. Even if you're retired listening to this and you're like, but I'm retired, I don't even invest anymore. You should still be taking some percentage of your income as a retiree and investing it back. Because at the end of the day, you have to minimize what you're drawing from your retirement funds so that you can ensure that sticks out as long as possible. And I think turning the switch off of we're not investing anymore. If you just continue investing the 5%, whatever of your income that you were doing before, it's going to help stretch it out for longer. I also think if you're retired, you might be like, Gordo, you're dumb. You're not going to feel like this when you're in retirement age. I think working a little when you're retired is great because I think we have a job. I think we have an economy that has jobs that need to be filled by part-time people. I think it's actually amazing for people to work until later in age, but I think it's much better to be retired with a nest egg that will take care of you for the rest of your life, and you get to work at something that brings you life and joy, versus you never figured out your personal budget. You never figured out how to spend less than you make. And you get to retirement age and you don't have enough to retire, and you have to work for the rest of your life, jobs that you might hate, jobs that might suck, because the older you get, the less jobs will hire you. They can't discriminate you because of your age, but they kind of can. Because if you apply for a job and they see you in the interview and they see how old you are, and they could just choose to not hire you. I mean, if you find out they choose to not hire you because of your age, you should file a human rights complaint. But if they just say, oh, we found other candidates that are more qualified, there's nothing you can really do about that. And then you're stuck with jobs that will hire. And again, you want to get to that age and where you get to work, not you have to work. And I just think, like, honestly, like, people are happier when they're exercising, when they're moving, when they're engaging in society. And I think a little bit of work when you're tired, like, helps with that. Anyway, yeah, but this is where it all kind of starts. You know, you get out as an adult, lots of families and parents don't teach you this, and you got to figure it out. And so the simplest way, and, you know, I'm going to like set up a website where I link some of my own personal finance stuff so people can just access it and use it. But you should just set up whatever. It can be an Apple Note. It can be a Google Sheet. It can be an Excel sheet. It can be a piece of paper. And you write down, and you should do it. I personally think you should do it per month. And you set down, like, what's my income per month? And you're going to either get paid once a month, twice a month, or every 2 weeks. If you get paid every 2 weeks, just treat it like you get paid twice a month. And then you get a little bit of bonus twice a year. 2 months a year, you get a little bonus because you get a third paycheck in those months. And write down your total income. And then this is where it's like a bit tough, but you write down all your expenses. So you start with fixed, and you write down my rent or mortgage. So your shelter, you write down your shelter costs, anything associated with them, your other fixed costs, life insurance, which I talked about before, streaming services, phone bills, car payments. Although I really think you should not have car payments, but car payments. And why should you have car payments? It's because you shouldn't buy a car that you can't afford. I was doing math with my wife today, and the average car payment, I think, is like $400 a month. They go as high as $500, $600, $700 a month. And when I was doing the math of what the two of us have paid for vehicles in our lifetime, I didn't average it out, but here's the numbers I'm going to tell you for what it worked out to per month. The first car I bought was $30 a month. That's what it worked out to from when I bought it to when I got rid of it. The second car I bought worked out to, I think it was $55 per month. My wife's car that she bought was like $20 per month. The van we own right now, I think we're down to $30 per month. That's the power of like buying a used vehicle, all cash up front, and doing regular maintenance. Now you could argue, Gordo, you're going to spend more on maintenance, and you're not like allocating that in your calculation, which is true. But at the end of the day, every car has maintenance, and some cars that are brand new at 20,000 K, they have a bearing that has to get changed. We've had friends, and they have a vehicle that's 6 years newer than ours, and I think their transmission went, and I think it was $5,000. And we're rolling with a van with 279,000 K, you know, knock on wood, transmission hasn't gone yet. Now, you just don't know. You have to pray and hope God leads you to a good vehicle that's not going to be too high cost when it comes to maintenance. But at the end of the day, typically when people have a monthly vehicle payment, they also have maintenance costs. And so when I'm listing these things, that we paid 20, 30, 50 bucks a month per vehicle, that's the average. When you take the purchase price, subtract the selling price, and divide the difference across the number of months that we owned it, that's what it comes down to. And here's what I'll tell you too. When you buy these type of vehicles, the cost, and this is like maybe a bit braggy, we've hardly sold our vehicles. We just end up giving them away because first off, they're pretty high mileage, so there's not a lot of money you can recoup off of them. Second off, we've had a lot of people treat us generously, and so we try to treat people generously in response. Treat others as you've been treated or as you would like to be treated. And so, one vehicle we got from family, we bought for a really low price and we sold it for the exact same price, like I think a year later, 2 years later, to another person. Vehicle, and like some of these vehicles are still in really good shape, and we just gave them away because we just thought, you know what, our monthly call, like it's been so low. Could we recoup a bit of money? Yeah, but we get to do something generous and help someone out. And that's a nice feeling. So anyway, so please don't have car payments. If you have a car that you're spending a bunch of money on, I think you should just sell it and get what you can for it. And, it's tough though. Because I know Dave Ramsey's big about that. Like, sell the vehicles, pay off the loans as much as you can, buy something used. I do think that's true. I honestly, unless you're like swimming in money, here's when you could justify buying on payments. If you have no other debt, maybe mortgage. Mortgage is okay, so we're not counting mortgage. If you have no other debt and you're sticking to a budget and you're investing 15% of your income, 15% of your gross income, and you have just money flowing out of your pockets after that, sure, you can go ahead and buy a car and get a monthly payment. But realistically, just like buy a used car, keep saving that money, and then save a bunch of cash and buy cash. I think that's probably better anyway. But yeah, so car payment. So you write down all of your expenses. Car, don't worry about gas and maintenance right now. You're just going to write down the monthly costs that insurance, payment, and where you itemize everything, every single thing that's consistent every single month. And then you have a category called variable. And this is gas, grocery, the inconsistent products that come and go throughout the month. Here's what you should do. Here's technically what you should do is you should know what's the most I'm going to spend on grocery, gas, hair product, toilet paper, whatever. If I had to buy everything in the same month, how much do I need? That's what you put in for your variable budget. Some other people do it different. Some people are like, no, my gas budget is this. My grocery budget is this. My toilet paper budget's this. But I think that complicates. Whereas if you just set it like this, then it's like all kind of contained. Sometimes there's give and take to each one. But then the important thing with it, though, is you have to stick to that variable budget. Also, when you write this down, if you're having a hard time spending less than you make, you might write this down and be like, oh my gosh, I have all these things I'm paying for. I don't even use this. I don't use my gym membership. I don't use my Spotify. I don't use my Netflix. I don't use my Disney Plus. And you can cancel these things. And you should check this once a month. If you have a family, you should do a monthly budget meeting. We started one. We didn't do one yet this month. But you should have a monthly budget meeting to go over what are the big expenses coming this month. Do we have enough in our variable to cover them? And then that's all you need to do. You write down your income, your expenses, have a category for your variable. You might be asking, so there's a hard way and an easy way to figure out your variable. Hard way, go back through previous months, see what you spend on gas, grow all these things, average them. You can get really minute into this, and you can average it per month over previous years. And then you should know each month how much it is. Find the highest month, and that's your variable budget for the whole year. Easy way. pick a number. All right, we're going to do $1,000 a month. Gas, grocery, everything is included in that. Dang, we're 1 week in, or we're 2 weeks into the month, and we're at $800 spent. Is this reasonable? Like, did we just eat out 5 times and $500 is from eating out? Or have we really tightened this? Do we have a family with a few kids and we're like cooking all our meals in? We're making smart purchases. Okay, then you consider increasing it. Conversely, if you're like, let's do 2,000 and you get through the month and you're just like hitting $1,000 every single month, maybe it bumps up to 1,200 when you have unexpected costs like oil change. Bump it down to 1,500. Put that extra 500 into investments or paying off debt if you haven't paid off debt yet. And you just like, I don't want to say you change it month to month because you shouldn't do that. At the end of the day, your income is generally fixed. But that's the easy way to do it. Yeah. And then, from there, you should have a surplus. And from your surplus, you determine how much of your surplus is going to what. Some people like to pay off their property first if they own where they live. I don't recommend that. I think what's more important first is that you are investing 15% of your gross income. Put all your money, all your surplus into that. Fix your budget until you're getting 15%. Now, investing, and this is interesting, if you have debt, if you have unsecured debt that is not bringing you additional income, then don't invest anything. Don't match your company's RSP. Do the absolute bare minimum you have to do when it comes to obligatory investments and just pay off your debt as fast as possible. If you haven't got your credit cards out of control, and here's something too, a caveat to the earlier thing I said about credit cards. If you can't get your credit cards under order, and it's been years, just cut them up. It's too late. Cut them, call, cancel, whatever, and forget the credit cards. Just stick to your debit card and pay off that debt as fast as possible. If that's paid off and you still have a car payment, pay your car payment off as fast as possible. And then attack your investments. Fix your budget so you can get 15% of your gross income invested. If you own your place, I think the idea of paying it off sooner is great, but the likelihood is you're probably buying it at an age where it's going to be totally paid off by the time you're retired anyway. And that's why I think it does not matter. It's because of with the philosophy, with the importance of compound interest, paying off your property doesn't help you earn income later in life. I think getting the habit now to invest more now and build this amazing pot of investment income and focusing on that earlier when compound interest is so much more powerful is really important. And then when you get later in life, then if your property is paid off, then you get to retirement with a paid off property and you have this giant pot of investment income, you're golden. I think what happens when people pay off their property first is they get kind of later in life and they get kind of laissez-faire with their investments and they don't invest as much as they probably should be. So that's why I recommend that. I think buying where you live can be a great, if it's within your budget. Now here's the thing too. What should your shelter costs be? So, because you'll go to a mortgage broker and they'll say you can get approved for $500,000 home, $500,000 mortgage. That doesn't mean you can actually afford it. Like, can you afford the monthly payment with the maintenance costs that come with that home and still be investing 15% of your gross income? That's what you have to consider. Dave Ramsey, and you can take this or leave this, he says your shelter cost should not be more than 25% of your net income. So if your household income is $4,000 net, you shouldn't pay more than $1,000 in shelter. And people will say, I live in Vancouver, that's impossible. I live in British Columbia, it's impossible. I live in California, it's impossible. But that the fact that feels impossible doesn't legitimize or delegitimize his advice. I think that's something people kind of forget. Like they get frustrated, like, oh, he's so out of touch. You can't do that. I think it's the opposite. I think it's like you have to strive to have the lowest shelter costs, the highest investments you can have. Like at the end of the day, no one else is coming. No one's coming to fix your budget. No one's coming to clean up your credit cards. No one's coming to take care of your children and their education. No one's coming to take care of you in retirement. If you're a Christian like me, you believe God provides everything and he'll provide for you when the time comes. But the problem with that too is God's providing for you now and expecting us to be stewarding the resources he gives us appropriately. And I don't want to look in God one day and be like, have him ask like, how come you spent that money, how you spent it? And honestly, if he asked that now, I probably would feel guilty about things I spend money on. But I want to be able to say like, Lord, you know, I try to be as diligent as I could be and categorize it so it get the maximum benefit for you in life. If you're not Christian, you probably won't give a crap about that. But if you are a Christian, that makes a big difference. And I think that no one else is coming. You have to figure this out. No one else is going to figure it out. Maybe something crazy happens and you get this giant pot of money from some relative you didn't know in a will that they established, just like the one I talked about in previous episode. And maybe you get some windfall that you can buy a property where you didn't expect to previously. Something like that. I don't know. But you can't expect those random things. It's kind of the opposite from like, you know, it's kind of the opposite from, you know, worrying about the negative sides of untimely death. You have to worry about those and put in protective measures so that they don't decimate your family. On the flip side, you can't expect those random windfalls to come. You know, your income is your most powerful tool to a free life. And it's up to you to be diligent in stewarding it in a way that can benefit you, your significant other, and your children, and even your children's children. Like for me, one thing we started as soon as Elliot was born, because I don't know if this is the same in other places in the world, but in Canada, you get a monthly benefit of like $450 when the kid's young. And I was like, right away, we're going to invest that on behalf of Elliot because I don't feel convicted to provide for all of my children's full education. I think actually it's important to not. I think it's important for them to pay a good chunk of their education. But I saw when I was doing like all my budgeting leading up to our son being born, and I was like, oh, how much if we put like $100 a month aside, how much, and we invest it, how much could be there when he goes to college or university? And it was like, in Canada, you get grants, you get 20% right off the hop of anything you invest in this special account called an RESP. And in BC, when they turn 6, you get a $1,200 grant. So you get all this free money. And I was like, man, if you do $100 a month, you get all these grants, you invest it 10% per year, you get like $75,000. And I was like, oh, I don't necessarily feel like I need to have $75,000 sitting there for when he's ready to go to school. And I think we would have some structure around what he could or couldn't use it for. But I was like, just a little bit of discipline could provide this for my kid. It's a no-brainer. And here's the thing I'm going to say too. If you're like, we're stretched thin, I'm a single parent, I can't do $100 a month. If you invest $20 per month over 18 years, $20 a month, 20, that's it. $20 per month. Every month for 18 years, I think you wind up with like close to $20,000. $20,000 doesn't pay for a whole education, but can you imagine your kid gets to school, you're a single parent, and you're just investing $20 a month on their behalf. The government was matching 20%, so they're getting $24 per month in total. and you're investing in getting 10% per year, and you get that $1,200 grant from the government, $20,000. Maybe that's a little high. I think maybe it was 18, but still $4,500 a year. And you say to your kid, hey, maybe you haven't told them this, but you get to that point, you can say, hey, I've been investing this a little bit. I've got $18,000 for you. I just want to help you per year, or maybe you want to give them a good start to their education, whatever. The point being, this is the power of what a little bit of discipline, a little bit of structure with your budget and investing can do. This is the power of budgeting. This is the power of budgeting. Because if you don't do this and you just like break even every single month and you don't know where all your money's going, you could be robbing your children of thousands of dollars for their education. That's the way I see it. You could be robbing yourself of a fruitful retirement. You could be robbing your children of an education. And I think it's not fair to tomorrow Gordo, to 65-year-old Gordo, that I don't get this under control now. It's not fair to my 18-year-old kids when they're 18 that I didn't get this figured out now. And and it goes back. No one else is coming. Like no one else, like you're the one that has to get this figured out. If you're in a situation where your family never taught you this and you've had people maybe cheat you and take money, and it's just you always feel like you're getting out from behind the 8 ball. Look, I'm sorry that's your reality. I'm sorry for maybe the upbringing you've had. I'm sorry for how this has transpired. And starting tomorrow, you have to make a decision to figure this out. And you can figure this out. You can and you will figure this out. We all can. We all will. And it might take a big, uncomfortable change. It might mean moving. Maybe you're a single parent with 2 kids. And maybe it means going from a 3-bedroom detached home that you're renting to a 2-bedroom apartment, and they split a room now. But no one else is going to come along and magically fix your budget and help you get these kids to adulthood financially healthy and get you to retirement financially healthy. That's the biggest thing with budgeting. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll make my budget sheet accessible in the description of this video. You just click on it and you can download it. Super simple. It'll have some predetermined categories, but I'll make it so you can download it. It'll be a Google sheet. So if you don't use Google, reach out to me. I'll send you an Excel form. And, just like, probably biggest things, don't have card payments. Don't think credit cards are going to get you rich, because they're not. The best case scenario, they might help you pay for some stuff. Worst case scenario, they keep you in debt and away from being rich. Rich is maybe that's a negative connotation. But credit cards they have some big pros, mostly being they help you if you get scammed. The biggest cons, they can keep you poor longer. And no one else is coming. You got to figure this out. You got to do it for yourself. You got to do it because you deserve it. Your kids deserve it, but you deserve having like a fruitful life and getting this figured out. And look, just make the hard decision. Cut the credit card up, move to the smaller place, maybe even ask your landlord if they could reduce your rent. Something crazy. I don't know. Maybe get an international student if you have an extra bedroom. I don't know. There's like so many things and you have to get creative. It might be frustrating. Maybe you look at your parents and you think, my parents didn't have to do this. Why do I have to do it? Wah. Cry what you got to cry and then get over it and make decisions you got to make. Because listen, no one else is coming. No one else is coming. We got to take care of ourselves because we deserve it. We got to take care of ourselves because we deserve it. That's what this all does. Life insurance, getting a will, doing our budgets. This is because we deserve it. And there's an ebb and flow like with life insurance. My wife has life insurance. I have life insurance. I deserve to have a life insurance. My wife it's like backwards. I deserve for my wife to have life insurance, and my wife deserves for me to have life insurance, because the loss of either of us would be catastrophic. And by having this life insurance payout, we'd be able to get by. Yeah, I've already explained that previously, but it's because we deserve it. And you deserve a good future, and a good future starts by getting your budget figured out. You can honestly, if you use ChatGPT, that's like a good way too. If you look at my budget system and you're like, this sucks, I don't like this, then if you go to ChatGPT, they'll give you a bunch of examples. There's like an app called You Need a Budget, YNAB. There's lots of different things you can do. But I will say this, there's no zero work option for a budget. It always takes work. It always takes time. And it's always less fun than the other things you want to do. But 65-year-old you, maybe 18-year-old of your children, will thank you greatly for figuring it out. So that's a budget. That's how I explained how I do my budget. I'll provide a spreadsheet for you to access. And listen, you deserve it, and you can do this. If you guys have any questions, put on my video. I'd love to chat about them and tell you what I've learned. That's all that this is. I'm not an expert. I've tried to access a bunch of info and process it and determine how to do these things, because you just got to figure it out on your own at the end of the day, So love you guys. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy this. Hope this helps. And we'll catch you on the next time. Love you guys. Peace.